I need you to hate so I can use you for your energy.
This is real sales talk. Real sales advice from real sales practitioners. Giving you tips on how to dominate your sales quota are your co-hosts, Sean Mitchell and Phill Keene. This episode is brought to you by Convertus. We are incredibly excited to have partnered together with Convertus, which helps SaaS and services run managed outbound campaigns for teams looking to drive new pipeline opportunities. For teams targeting mid-size and enterprise deals, Convertus integrates with CRMs like Salesforce to uncover actionable data in their sales processes, which enables them to find areas of improvement and double down on strategies that actually work. Benchmark the lead generation performance expected of a seasoned SDR and identify actionable areas of improvement in a sales process, all out of one place with Convertus. For teams looking to measure and enhance their performance of their sales funnel and architect a better revenue engine, cast an application to join the Convertus Slack group. It's at convertus.com/Slack. That's Convertus, CONVERTIST.com/Slack, SLACK.
What is going on, Real Sales Talk podcast? It is Phill Keene here with Sean Mitchell. So we're going to bring you guys the one time a season that we decide that we want to chat about sales and just think about all the things that we've been learning, things that we've been taking in, learning from our day-to-day life. And Sean and I, before we're chatting a little bit about what's really been kind of bugging us recently, or what we really feel like we're understanding or walking through today, or things we've heard from other people. And it kind of all centered around just getting a deal closed and making it happen, making your number. So a lot of you guys out there, we're actually recording this on August 1st. Yesterday was July 31st. It was the end of your quarter, or maybe your quarters are off and you actually end your quarter coming up pretty soon. So for all of you that are trying to get a deal closed, or people that are out there in the real estate world, they're always hustling to get that deal closed, they get the house finished, and get your signing. We're going to talk about a few key skills. So Sean, first of all, what is going on, man? How's the life of real estate going? And then we'll jump into the topic.
Yeah, it's definitely full. Doing lots of deals, lots of things coming in. There's no shortage of business, that's for sure. And it's a good time to be in real estate. And for those that are in real estate listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. You don't have to dig very hard to find gold at this point. You just have to work your face off once you get those deals. And so that's the season that I'm in right now. It's just take as much on as I can, and get deals done in a reasonable time. And that's what I was in Colorado Springs today for closing. Actually thought this deal was going to fall through. And this is maybe one of the reasons why I want to talk about negotiation, is because this really came down to, among maybe a few other things, negotiation was probably one of the key elements that helped move this deal to an agreeable situation. You're muted.
I'm on mute. That's okay. So Sean, I got new fancy microphones that had a cough button, so I wanted to save you guys the cough. So Sean, if you go into that world, I think where we're going to unpack this a little bit further, like you closed a lot of different types of things. So software, obviously real estate now. So for anybody that has been an avid listener of Real Sales Talk, like you have a background of winning a lot of different things and closing a lot of different types of deals. And myself as well, like I've lived in the world and closed a lot of different types of things. So fundamentally, there's a lot of things that are similar no matter what you're selling throughout any deal that you're working. So let's start really early of getting a deal closed, and maybe we're going to start at the end and reverse engineer backwards. So talk about like the end negotiation and getting it to the signature side of things.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a story to kind of set up the conversation. So I've had the good fortune of maybe 2 or 3 times getting some of my sales questions answered by Gary Vaynerchuk. One of the questions that I asked him, this is probably over a year ago by now, is how to get the deal done when it gets down to negotiation. And this is some advice that he gave me that I really have taken to heart. And basically what he said was, what he tries to do in a deal is find out exactly what that person needs to win, to feel like they're walking away with a win. And if he feels like he can meet them somewhere in the middle, then he'll do that, even though he knows that he may lose a little bit. He can get the deal done. And he talked about the speed in which things get done when you take that sort of approach allows you then to move on to other things, versus if you take I'm going to puff my chest and you're going to puff your chest and we're going to beat our chest until the other person backs down type of negotiating approach. You end up burning so much time. And so he's kind of telling this explaining his approach to negotiation. And so I think I really have taken that as my own and really embraced that idea of trying to figure out as fast as possible what the other person needs to win, and determining from that point how we can meet in the middle. And the fastest way to an agreement means that you're moving on to closing a deal, hopefully. But I think this is really, really key. And I would say in real estate, most practice this. Okay, how can we find a win-win? But occasionally you'll come across people who just have a lot of pride and arrogance, and the only thing that they want to do is get their own way. So maybe we can dialogue about this, because I think that this is a really fundamental part of feeling like, both parties can walk away with something that they're proud of, that they're happy with, that they really have in mind, instead of beating someone with a stick until they submit.
So let's go down that path a little bit further. So you said a couple things there. So you said one is you have to know how much you can lose, or you don't want to lose too much. You can give and let them feel like they're winning, and you can even potentially lose a little bit on your own, as long as you know that you're getting the deal done so you can move on. So one, how do you know internally, like, how did I know that I didn't give too much to where I lost too much? Like, how do you know that? Because ultimately there's some pride in just getting a deal won. Like, there's the competitive nature in a lot of salespeople where they like the win itself feels like a win. So talk me through that mentally for you as you go through that deal.
Yeah. So I think it's probably a good idea before you get on that phone call or get face to face to know what your walkaway point is, what you're not willing to give. And I think that's probably negotiation 101, even though I've never been in a negotiating class. That's probably one of the first things that you want to know is, okay, what's my threshold in which I walk away? And know that, because if you don't, then you may be in that situation where if things are progressing really fast, or the conversation is moving along, and you agree to something that maybe you haven't had time to process or think through the consequences of, you may end up giving more than you really should. And so I think the first thing that you need to do is, before that conversation happens with that other party, know what that walkaway point is, what that limit is, or that threshold for you. And then I would say, find out, find out what you're comfortable giving. But I mean, again, it's determine what you're comfortable giving and what you feel like would be a win, even if you gave a little bit in return. I really like the 50-50 approach. Like, okay, how can we make this, if someone is asking for, I mean, this is a perfect example with this deal that closed today, at a certain point in what's called the the inspection objection, where the buyer has an inspector come and take a look at the house and, dig through every nook and cranny and find out all the things that are wrong and all the things that could be wrong or maybe should be fixed. We got stuck on this one item that we didn't think needed to be taken care of, that we didn't think was an issue, but they did, and they wanted us to pay $600 to get it fixed. We didn't think it was necessary, and so we said, okay, how about we just split this 50-50, even though we know that it's not necessary? What can we do here? How can we meet in the middle here so we can get to the next step and ideally to the closing table? So we ended up splitting that cost 50-50 in order for us to move on.
Yeah, and I think for you, as you walk through it, and I know as I purchased a house, I had something very similar come up. And the conversation I had with my real estate agent and me being in sales, I was like, listen, do I really want to give up a potential loss is much greater than the $300 that I was going to have to pay out to fix something? It's like, I'm not going to argue over potentially a 5-figure loss because of a $300 thing. And if I have to go back and put my house back on the market because of it, let's just get it done.
Yeah, it's going to cost you more if you're firm and hard-headed about not giving that up. It's going to cost you more to lose the deal, put it back on the market, and that all the time that it takes, it's at least another 30 days and probably more if you decide to, not do the thing that they're wanting.
Yeah. So think about it in a B2B setting. So let's maybe change the script a little bit more. So let's say I get to the end of the quarter and people know there's a way to manipulate software salesmen whenever they're at the last day of the quarter to be able to sell the deal at a much better discounted rate. It just happens a lot in the sales world, and we allow it to happen. And part of it's we have no leverage to be able to get that done. And I think there's more that we can go down that path. And I have some thoughts behind it as well. But you get to that last day of quarter and someone basically is like strong arming you and giving them a better deal. How do you as a salesperson in the B2B world kind of counterpunch that?
Yeah. I mean, you've got to, the first thing that comes to mind, Phil, is you've got to, if you've done a good job at discovery when that conversation first kicks off, if you've done a good job, you know exactly what they're trying to get at. And you can bring that back around and say, hey, when you told me that you've got a problem with not knowing what your sales reps are saying on their sales calls when they're on the phone, this is why this is how this product is going to help you and why it's worth X. You told me that if you could implement this product, that it would equate to Y number of productivity or Y number of dollars. So why is this a sticking point for you if you know what this is going to produce?
Yeah, and I think it comes to our earlier point, and Sean, you talked about, which you have to know your breaking point when you can walk away in that sense, like to know that, hey, if I sell this deal to you right now, is it really worth it, or is it going to cost me money, or do I really need to discount this for you, or have I sold you enough that it makes sense for me? And I think there's a lot of elements into the B2B sale that you have to think through, and really any sale is. I have this theory, and it's called the economic scale of a sale call. And I think the idea is that the more value that you drive, the more you can charge. It's simple, basic economics 101. If I can tell you, Sean, if I just want a 15-minute meeting, I need to give you 30 minutes of value off of the conversation I have, so you'll give me 15. And if I want a half hour, I need to go get 60 minutes worth of value to you. Like, that's what I'm charging. I'm not charging you money. I'm charging you time, and time's almost just as valuable, if not more. And I think it's that idea, if you have that mentality in your conversation. And then if you're getting really to the end of the deal, like if you want someone to pay you $50,000, you need to give them above and beyond $50,000 worth of value. And it has to be personal value. And the idea is, Sean, if you're the advocate, you're the champion. Like, I've had to sell you on this, and you had to carry that torch, and you have to know why you're purchasing that software. There's actual times where this might be make or break for that person's career by making this choice to put your software solution in or put your whatever solution you're selling in a business setting. So you have to really change your mentality. And if you're in it together as a partnership, a lot of those things like, hey, it's the last day of the quarter and you need a good deal, they kind of disappear earlier in the sales process. Maybe talk earlier. So talk about your world and in the B2B world, maybe some mistakes that you learned, and then maybe even early in real estate that you learned that you kind of worked through, and you're like, gosh, I can't believe I was doing this earlier. Real Sales Talk family, want to take a quick break just to say thank you to our partner Convertus. If you're interested in improving your game to drive leads, opportunities, or closes, join the Convertus Slack group, a place where sales and marketing operators can talk best practices to architect a revenue engine. Cast an application at convertus.com/Slack. That's convertus.com/Slack. Now let's get back to the episode.
I think so. I want to bring up one interesting thing that I think I've sharpened this skill in real estate, but and maybe it's just tenure in sales in general, but I think it's really important, Phil, to learn how to sniff out when someone is just trying to bust your balls and get a good deal. And that's why I think it's important to know what that walkaway point is and not to be afraid. When you feel like it's not a fair deal or a fair agreement, fair negotiation, know that it's okay to walk away because they're being unreasonable. And, if they're making a big deal about $500 when the value of the product that you're selling them is $10,000 or $50,000 or $1 million, and you still can't come to an agreement, then, you really have to ask yourself, is this really worth your time to be going back and forth and back and forth? And sometimes you just need to walk away. And in a lot of cases, if it's meant to be, they'll come back. And sometimes you saying no makes them want it even more. So my advice just kind of on this particular topic is to, number one, if you work for yourself, know what that threshold is that you're, and maybe you just kind of instinctively when you're talking, when you start to feel uncomfortable, or maybe if you have a manager or someone who works over you who makes the rules, ask them, hey, at what point do we not give away the farm, so to speak, and at what point do we need to just cut the line and take the losses and be okay with the potential of this losing? Because the truth is, like, someone who's that difficult about something so small is probably going to be difficult, when they become a customer. So you have to, I think you have to realize, who's got the leverage, and if you're bending to their every beck and call, then you don't have the leverage, and you're not going to, most likely throughout the duration of that customer relationship.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a really good thing. It was really more around HR things really early in my career, but I had a really good leader who told me, if you're ever in doubt, take a partner. Mm-hmm. If you ever have an issue, like if you ever feel like you're in an uncomfortable situation, take a partner in. So for instance, if it's negotiation, you feel like you're not really sure what the answer is, like, don't go alone. Like, have somebody in there that can help think through the process with you. And it also gives you kind of an out to say, hey, Sean, I actually got to walk away from this. I got to talk. I'm going to sit with Sean. I'm going to have this conversation with Sean. And then we can get back with you and give you a better answer there. So if you think about, if you get put in a really difficult situation, to have that secondary out and have somebody else that has heard it in real time and was in that conversation as well, to be able to also think through it with you. I think that was a really valuable insight. If you get stuck in a bad situation or a difficult situation, take a partner. Yeah. And I also, go ahead.
So to kind of continue on with that conversation, because I wanted to finish that thought. Like, one of the things that I think I've learned over the course of my sales career, when it comes to negotiating is, if they're asking for something, you come back with a second meeting or a second round of negotiation. Know what that second and third and fourth response is going to be, or that next move if they say no way, or think about what possible responses that they're going to have and how you would respond to those. So that, I mean, maybe personalities are different, but I probably don't think as well on the fly. I do better when I plan and when I can plan ahead. So for me, I think it's key for me to kind of go down that road. Okay, so if I propose this and they say that, how am I going to respond? Versus if they respond this way, what's my response going to be? And so something that I've kind of learned over time is to think through those different scenarios, how you're going to respond, so that you can move that conversation as much as possible when you do have that opportunity to meet face-to-face or over the phone whenever that time is scheduled.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So there's one thing I think salespeople do really poorly, and I think every salesperson works. Not every, it's a generalization, but I think there's a stereotype in the world that salespeople are pretty binary. So when they think of those scenarios, they're only thinking of them as yes or no answers. Like, I'm trying to think of a good case scenario. Let's say it's an answer. Say I ask you a question. I think it's only going to be a yes or no answer, but in all actuality, it's probably somewhere in between.
Yep.
And part of it, either you weren't clear on what you were asking or what you were saying, or they actually don't know, or they needed more information to be able to make a decision. So it's understanding why that actually is happening, why they're not telling you a yes or no binary answer, which is what you're looking for. And when we think of what potential outcomes could be, and then thinking a layer or two layers past that, is we're only thinking in the yes answer or only thinking the no answer, and we're only thinking about how we respond to that versus, in most cases, it's the maybe that we run into, not a no. And if you did a really good job at eliminating things earlier in the sales process that aren't fit, it's mostly a maybe or a yes, or a not right now, which is more of a maybe. Yeah, it's not really it. It's not a fit yet. Great. Why is it not a fit? Tell me why it's not. Like, you don't go deep enough and discuss enough of that conversation, and you didn't build a good enough business case early in the sales process to understand why they should buy from you, when they should buy from you, who really needs to be involved in making this decision. Like, those are core elements of sale that a lot of people miss. They take a bad step in the sales process by forgetting a piece of information early. It'd be like taking a 400 level college class and forgetting to take 101.
Mm-hmm.
You forgot to do the little thing, and then now it just feels really awkward to go back to that class.
Yeah.
I think those are the little things that people miss inside that process.
Yeah. And one of the exercises that I've just gotten into the habit of, and is pretty intuitive now, is to try and think from the perspective of the other party, put myself in their shoes to say, what are they going to be looking for? What are they going to be thinking about? Where are they going to go if I bring up this conversation? And that's kind of what I was talking about before about, okay, so if they respond this way, then this is going to be my response. But before I get on that phone call, I'm imagining myself as that person, thinking from that perspective, and maybe considering all the conversations before. So if you're in B2B, it's, in you're targeting executives. Okay, what's most important to this person? What are they going to try and what's the perspective that they're going to be coming from, so that I can plan to respond to that appropriately?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And as you think about how you prepare for phone calls, there's typically an outcome. So it's understanding your sales process stage by stage by stage, and what actually has to happen to get a deal closed. And that could be really difficult if you don't come to a call prepared. I saw some crazy stat that's out there. It's like 57% of B2B prospects feel that salespeople don't show up prepared for their phone call. It doesn't matter what call. It was just generally like any call that they get on is like, they're just not ready. They just don't know what they're supposed to be talking about, why we're even taking this phone call. If you don't have an agenda set up for that call, you don't know what you're trying to achieve in that call, you're not going for the close until you're ready for the close, until you've built that business case. And you really haven't earned the right to be able to ask for that close yet. And I think that's an interesting, you're not really negotiating if you've already earned the right for that close. And by earn the right means I've already sold it internally. I've already got all the boxes checked that I need for you to get your technology put in place. We've already negotiated on price. We're kind of done with negotiating price. And now I'm asking for this to actually get closed. But I think it's walking into every single call with a firm set. I know I need to get this done, and this is the outcome I'm looking for.
Yeah, no surprises. I mean, trying to eliminate as many surprises as possible. I mean, this is something that maybe we should have someone who's retired military come in and talk about, because they rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, and it becomes second nature, right? Basic training, it's second nature. They know how to respond to everything in every situation, and it's just muscle memory. I think that would be a really interesting guest to try and bring on, as someone who is retired military, talk about preparation, because that's really what this is. In the higher the stakes, the more preparation that you do. If you're dealing with a multi-million-dollar deal, you're going to be preparing a lot, or hopefully. But if it's a $20 a month product, SaaS product, there may not need to be as much preparation. So things are a little bit more predictable with lower stakes, but with higher stakes, sometimes things can become quite unpredictable.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's interesting. I think there's a lot to it. Like you really early on. So if you're a salesperson and this is your first sales job and you just graduate college and you're trying to figure things out, I think that's a really good call out, which is just knowing where you're over prepared. Right? You're almost, you know it, where it's the back of your head. Like you can say it anytime you want. If you close your eyes in the middle of the dark and nobody else is around, like you could recite it like someone else is having a conversation with you, and getting really, really good at that. And I always laugh at sales trainers because they go in there and everything sounds so perfect. You hear it like, wow, man, if I could just do it just like that person, like I would crush it. Like, but you always forget that person's probably been sales trainer for like 25 years. Mm-hmm. They could say it no matter what you throw at them, they can say it perfectly every single time. And there's really good sales trainers out there, but it's forgetting that one time you were that person that couldn't remember. You were the person that couldn't think about all those things that had happened. And negotiation is something that you need to practice. Like how to ask for the sale and ask for a close is something that you need to practice. We always practice the hey opener, or what question I should ask and how I should respond to it, or hey, how to tell a customer story. Like we practice that stuff. We always forget that you should probably still practice how to ask for the close, because when you're put in a really stressful situation, you just do whatever you think is natural. And if you haven't rehearsed it and practiced it, it's not natural to you. Like you got to put yourself in that where you build that muscle memory up. So yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and recap here. What's your one takeaway from this conversation this evening? I think the biggest thing is to know your breaking point, to really know how much you can give and stick to your guns when you need to there. Yeah. I would say, and this is something that I'm thinking like for my sales process right now is rehearsing. In fact, I was thinking about this on the drive home tonight. I've got someone who responded to me who said, yeah, let's meet Friday between 4 and 5. So I just have not had enough reps with like the first sales call to really feel comfortable. And so I think that that's an opportunity for me. Anyway, so rehearsing, muscle memory, I think that's really, really important. And I'm actually pretty motivated now to find someone who we can bring on to talk about basic training and muscle memory. I think that'd be really interesting. It would be definitely interesting to hear how an expert does it. Yeah. Cool. All right, Real Sales Talk fam. Thanks so much for tuning in, and see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to Real Sales Talk, and a big thank you to our sponsor, Convertus. If you enjoyed this episode, go write a review on iTunes or any other podcasting platform.